So this presentation is for the Leftovers Foundation, a nonprofit organization founded in Calgary in 2012. So I know I'm preaching to the converted, so I'm going to blast through the first sort of few slides. So I always start off with a few questions just to get thinking about food waste and food insecurity. And I always ask, who knows what percentage of Canadian food production goes to waste? And if you were thinking 40%, that's correct. So that's $31 billion of food wasted per year. And some reports even say it's closer to 100 billion just in Canada, because that $31 billion doesn't capture food that's wasted at institutions, prisons, schools, etc. And that is just in Canada. And if you think about how many Canadian households are food insecure, and so that's households that they really don't know where their next meal is going to come from. According to the government, it is 8%, but I've read a few other articles that say it's closer to 12%. And in Alberta, that equates to 11% of Albertan households are food insecure, which is about 164,000 households. And research shows, as sort of Sandra pointed to, that houses with children are the most food insecure in Canada. What do we have? So we have an excess, a surplus of food and waste, and we have food insecurity, hunger, and a demand for food. And so I started the Leftovers Foundation. And so we look at these two global issues of food waste and food insecurity. And what we do in Calgary is we eliminate waste and we alleviate hunger. So we redirect excess food to people in need just at the retail level. So that's grocery stores, vendor markets, bakeries, sort of the Starbuckses of the world, Good Earths. We have 2 out of the 3 Calgary farmers markets on board. And we take that food and we deliver it to service agencies in need. We also educate on preventing food waste, where your food comes from. So we work with the Calgary Board of Education, and our volunteers go into schools and do presentations on food waste and food insecurity. And some of the 6 and 7-year-olds are smarter than our presenters on food waste and the environment. And we also work on policy and legislation work. So we work really closely with the Masters of Public Policy School in Calgary. And we're looking at ways, within our regulatory framework, what needs to be tweaked or changed or introduced so that, we can affect change at the government level. So our mission is to rescue food. So the food that we pick up is fresh, it's perishable, it's ready to eat. None of it is rotten or expired, which is a stigma that we had to sort of fight through when we first started. We work with our vendors to ensure the quality of the food. We work really closely with Alberta Health Services and make sure that we're following the guidelines for transportation, because all the food is brought from one place to the next through our volunteer system. So last year we had 155 active volunteers just driving around food, using their own cars, own gas, own time, own bins and bags. So it's a really great grassroots volunteer network. So those are just a few of the places in Calgary that donate to us. There's a few movies being filmed in Calgary, and Fargo, I think, is being filmed in Calgary as well. So we started to pick up from movie sets, and those are actually the routes that get picked up really quickly. These are just some photos of the food that gets delivered. So we just make sure that everything is to AHS guidelines. The food is so good and so fresh. A lot of our volunteers make a regular schedule, so it's something that they do with their family every Thursday night, and they sign up for the entire year. So our schedule is at 75% capacity, and we're always bringing on new vendors, new volunteers, and new service agencies. So it sort of has to all work simultaneously, so that can be a challenge, but we've somehow made it work. So these are some of the service agencies that we donate to. So it's everywhere from the drop-in center, which serves 3,000 meals a day plus bagged lunches, to smaller outfits like the Boys and Girls Club, where they do after-school programs. We make sure that they get some good earth treats for their kids for after school. So this is what we did in 2016. So it was 167,000 pounds of food rescued. And that includes about 1.2 tons of food from the Calgary Stampede, which we sort of just wiggled our way into. I knew the company that was doing the composting at the Stampede, and he said, why don't you come along one night and see who wants to donate their food? So we ran that through AHS, and they gave us a bunch of guidelines of food we could pick up. And it was a lot of food. And it was, I think, 3 or 4 volunteers last Stampede. And that's just from the Midway and from the Expo Center. And so this year we're going to roll out a more formal program with them so that it's not so last minute. So there's 51 routes, 7 days a week. We equate the 167,000 pounds to about 138 meals provided in a year. We have 42 vendors now since this presentation was made, and still 28 different agencies, and there's some environmental statistics as well. So this presentation is usually given in Calgary, where we always need help, and I'm always asking for volunteers and vendors. But we are we're trying to launch a Leftovers Foundation at Edmonton, hopefully to help with the food bank, with Sandra's initiatives, and we're always in need of vendors and volunteers. And that's us online.